All right, welcome everybody around the world. Welcome to all my subscribers. Finally, this is the fourth attempt. I shouldn't be interrupted this time. So, for this video, this long-awaited video, I have a lineup of verses, about half a dozen verses, and all I have to do is read them from top to bottom, these 5 or 6 verses, however many there are, and it will absolutely convince anybody listening of what I'm claiming. Okay, my claim is that the Bible has revealed to us openly, openly revealed to us when Jesus will return, the timing of when he will return. Okay, and I have to say first, as a disclaimer, it's an absolute lie. It's unscriptural, it's uneducated, and it's a lie to say that we cannot know when Jesus will return. It's true to say that we won't know the day. Oh, that's why it's this side. We won't know the day or the hour, like 2 verses say. Okay, but those 2 verses, I want to point out, the only verses in the whole Bible that say we can't know the day or hour. There's only 2 of them, and they occur in Matthew chapter 24 and chapter 25. Now, they didn't have chapter numbers or even punctuation or capital letters back then when they wrote the Bible, Old or New Testament. So really, it's not Matthew 24 and 25. It's just Matthew. And in between the verse in Matthew 24 and the verse in 25, where it says, you can't know the day or hour, in between those 2 verses is a catch. There are a cluster of verses in between those 2 that it's not contradicting, but it shows the complete opposite. Now, it's true that we won't know the day or the hour. That's true. It's not contradicted. But we'll know the year that he's coming because it's revealed to us. That's the catch. And nobody can say I'm wrong. I mean, the logical evidence, the wisdom shows that I'm correct. Nobody has thought about it from this perspective. They just assume that it's littered throughout the Bible, that we won't know when the end of days comes or when Jesus returns. That's not true. It only occurs in 2 verses. In the entire Bible of about 1,000 pages, there's only 2 sentences that say something like that. And they don't even say we can't know when Jesus returns or the year. It just says we won't know the day or the hour. Okay? That's factoid number 1. Most people don't know that. They just assume it's throughout the Bible. That's not true. It's those 2 places only. And it just says we won't know the day or the hour. And in between these 2 verses is something showing that we should know and must know the year of his return, because if we're not ready, waiting, and watching for it, we could be in serious trouble. Okay? So I'll also refer everybody, I'll grab it real quick, it's right here. My book, which is available on Amazon. I don't have time to get into this today. My video here today is just this list of verses, which are the watch verses. Okay, it derives from one of the chapters in my book here, but there is tons more evidence, scriptural evidence, for when the end days will occur. In my book here, 7 pillars of scriptural proof. These are 7 unique prophecies. Each one's different, unique prophecies, and each one has its own unique time period ascribed to it, and they're all related to when the end will occur. All of these 7 pinpoint that the end will be in 2024, including chapter 1, which is the biblical chronology from the firstborn mortal son of woman, who was Seth. Nobody even thinks of that. They always count everything from Adam. It's past 6,000 years if you count from Adam. It's all mapped out on the pages with all the source verses, every number, every digit is right there in chapter 1 for you. The 6,000th year, without any question, is 2024. That which also plays directly in hand to my lineup of verses here, because it's about the period of of 2 watches, which is a period of 2,000 years, the final 2,000 years of God's divine week. Okay, and at the end of the 6th, when it reaches year 6,000, meaning it has been 6,000 years. Okay, from 0 to 1, from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, from 3 to 4, from 4 to 5, and from 5 to 6. It's been 6,000 years. 6000 means it has been 6,000 years. Okay? So when that comes, that's the end of the day of preparation, and what happens next, the millennial Sabbath. Okay? So anyways, I urge everybody, go to Amazon, get my book. It's only $11.11, $11.11. It's available around the world and has international copyright. There is tremendous a tremendous amount of evidence in this book, but that's enough about the book for today. Let's get into the lineup of verses. So, like I said, ignoring all the other evidence for when the end will occur, according to the Bible, all those other chapters from my book which corroborate and back up what I'm about to present here, but ignoring all of that evidence and just looking at this as itself, this little lineup of verses, that's all you need to know when Jesus is going to return. Yes, it's nice to have all the other ones like the prophecy of Daniel, the prophecy of Isaiah, and so forth. That's just even better. That's more evidence. But all you need is one good piece of evidence where the Bible is mapped out and told you it's going to be blah. And that's what this lineup of verses here will reveal. Okay, so starting off in Psalm 90, verse 4, this is the very famous verse that Judaism and Christianity both say, which doesn't always happen, but they both say that this verse reveals that a day unto God is like 1,000 years of man. Okay, so what is 1,000 years for us is just one day for God. Okay, Judaism and Christianity both ascribe to this. Okay, so in Psalm 90, verse 4, it says, "For 1,000 years in thine eyes are as yesterday, for it passeth on, yea, a watch by night." Everybody has heard that verse. Everybody is familiar with a day is like 1,000 years, right? But nobody bothers to read the second half of the sentence, because the verse says, "For it passeth on, yea, a watch by night." That is openly telling you, even more, it doesn't verbatim openly say a day unto God is 1,000 years. It says, "For 1,000 years in thine eyes are as yesterday." That's not like open and direct, but it's heavily implied and logical. But the second half of the sentence openly and directly implies that a watch is 1,000 years. "For it passeth on," the it is 1,000 years, "yea, a watch by night." That is directly telling you that a 1,000 year period is regarded as a watch. Now, what is a watch by night? What is a watch? Well, a watch is when it's nighttime, you have people whose job it is to watch, whether it be flocks, the city walls, the watchtowers, whatever it might be, and they'll break up the length of the night into a period of watches. Now, it depends where you are in the world and what time of year it is and all of that, but generally speaking, because a day has 24 hours, you have 12 hours for night, 12 hours for day. They may fluctuate, but nonetheless, the point is that the phase of night is split up into watches. Now, how many watches is it split up into? Well, my next verse in Mark 13 tells us that there are 4 periods of night watch. Okay, so it doesn't matter if you have an 8-hour night or 12-hour night, what time of year it is, where you are in the world, that's irrelevant. The relevance is that when it's nighttime, you can break the night period up into 4 watches. Okay, so I wanted to start off with Psalm 90 because this is the cornerstone of understanding for the rest of my verse lineup. It openly tells us that 1,000 years is a watch. Okay, now Mark 13, verse 34 through 35, these verses show us that not only are we commanded to watch for his return, which is important, but that's a whole nother discourse I could give on that and how important that is. But it does say in these verses that there are 4 watches. Okay, it says, "As a man who has gone abroad," this is a reference to Jesus when he left the earth, right? "As a man who has gone abroad, having left his house and given to his servants the authority, and to each one his work, did command also the porter," that's the person who watches the door, "that he may watch. Watch ye therefore, for ye have not known when the Lord of the house does come, whether at evening time, or at midnight, or at cock crowing, or at the morning." These are the 4 watch periods. You have evening, that's where it becomes nighttime, the very start. Then you have midnight, which is the middle of the night. Then you have cock crowing, that's when roosters wake up. They wake up 3, 4, 5 a.m., slight fluctuation, but they wake up way before the sun rises and they start crowing. I have roosters. I didn't know they did that until I got roosters, and I looked it up and I found out it's a common myth that roosters crow at the sun. That's not what happens. Okay, they might also crow at the sun, but they wake up classically in the early hours of the morning and start their crowing. Okay, and the final watch phase is morning. Okay, so it doesn't matter how long the night period is, because that can fluctuate. You have 4 watch periods, biblically defined right here, 4. says how many, it even names them arbitrarily. Okay, so these are the two foundational understandings that we're going to start with before I read the following last few verses here. Okay, a watch is a 1,000-year period. There are 4 watches to the night phase. The night phase starts when the man is gone abroad. So when Jesus leaves the earth, there are then 4 watches that follow. That's 4,000 years. Does it mean it's 4,000 years till the end? No. Pay attention and listen to the following few verses. So Matthew 24, verse 43, which ironically, like I said at the start, Matthew 24, Matthew 25, and they didn't have chapter numbers back when the Bible was written. So in Matthew 24 and 25, we have the only 2 verses where it says you can't know when Jesus returns. But what it actually says is you won't know the day or the hour. In between those 2 verses that say that is a cluster, a paragraph, which is paralleled in the other Gospels, where it shows us that we are expected to know when Jesus returns, and that if we don't know when to expect Jesus' return, that we'll be caught by surprise as if he was a thief. It teaches us that if we are watching and aware of when he will return, we will not be caught by surprise. And it says that if we're not watching, we're unawares, we're ignorant, we will be caught by surprise as if he was a thief breaking into our house. Okay, very important. This is reinforced by about 3 verses that I got. So in Matthew 24, 43, it says, "And this know, that if the master of the house had known in what watch the thief does come, he had watched and not suffered his house to be broken through." So what this logically and directly tells you is that, like I said, if you know when Jesus is going to come, the year, we're not going to know the day or the hour, like Matthew 24, these verses say, but if we know when, the year, when Jesus will return, then we won't be caught by surprise, because thousands of years have gone by since Jesus was here. Everybody wanted Jesus to come immediately in every generation, but he's only going to come once at the end of days. And when is the end of days? Well, the Bible's showing us here. Okay, so the other important thing, the most important thing about this verse, Matthew 24, 43, is it's the only one in the Bible that actually specifies that Jesus arrives in a watch. Now that's important, because we just heard that a watch is a 1,000-year period, and we also heard that there are 4 watches to the night phase. So which watch of the 4 will Jesus arrive in? Will he arrive after 1,000 years? Well, no, because he didn't turn up 1,000 years after his resurrection, did he? Obviously not. That's too soon anyways. That would be way before the 6,000 years. He's not going to come in the 4th watch, because that contradicts the conclusion that I'm going to show here. It tells you which one he arrives in, right? And it's not the 4th, right? But the 4th is also too far past the year 6,000, okay? So it's not the 4th watch. He's only logically able to come in the 2nd or the 3rd watch, which would be either 2,000 years after he left the earth, or, well, 2,000 years since he was on the earth, or 3,000 years since he was on the earth. Okay, so it's one of those two logically, right? Now, next, in Luke 12, verse 38, this verse proposes that Jesus may come in either the 2nd or the 3rd watch, like I just claimed. And it says, "And if he may come," which is talking about Jesus, "if he, Jesus, may come in the 2nd watch, and in the 3rd watch he may come, and may find it so, happy are those servants." What's it mean by find it so? Well, like I just claimed earlier, in Matthew 24, where you have those 2 verses that say you won't know the day or the hour, in between those 2 verses, we have the paragraph, the cluster of verses that say that we should know the year of his arrival, and if we don't, we're going to be caught unawares at his arrival. Okay? Now, that cluster of verses in each of the, in the Gospels in which this story is paralleled in, I think 3 out of the 4, or 2 out of the 4, but in all the parallels where it does occur, this cluster of verses concludes with what I just said. If you're ready, waiting, and watching, you know when he's going to come, you won't be caught by surprise. But if you don't know when he's going to return, you'll be caught by surprise, which is only logical. Okay? So in Luke 12, 38, Luke 12 is penultimately important in all of this, and I've got some more of Luke 12 later to read. But for right now, Luke 12, 38 says that Jesus will come in either the 2nd or the 3rd watch. And if he comes and finds those people ready for his arrival, happy are those servants, because they were watching, they knew when he would come, and they weren't caught by surprise. Okay, and we're going to see the repercussions for those who aren't ready, waiting, and watching, and who are going to be caught by surprise. We're going to see the repercussions that brings in the following verses. So let's do another quick breakdown. We know that a watch is 1,000 years. We know that there are 4 watches to the night period. Okay, we know that Jesus comes in either the second or the third watch. So he doesn't come in the first, he doesn't come in the fourth. He's only going to come in either the second or the third watch. And the Matthew 24 instruction that says, if we know what watch he's going to arrive in, we won't be caught by surprise. I mean, it blatantly says that. So let's go on. This is where it gets critically important. In Hosea 6:2, this verse, again, like Psalm 90, is ironically held by both Judaism and Christianity, which doesn't happen often where people agree like that from those two hemispheres. But we all agree that this is a prophetic and messianic prophetic verse. It's referring to the end of days, the judgment day, the resurrection day, the redemption day, all those wondrous things that all occur in that one day. Okay, that's what it's talking about. Now, what it reveals is that after 2 watches, i.e. 2,000 years, i.e. 2 days unto God, and thus at the third, so after 2, and at the start of the third, at the introduction of the third, after the 2, is when all of this occurs. So the verse itself says, he, meaning God, does revive us after 2 days. In the third day, he does raise us up, and we live before him. Okay? So like I said, this is an accepted verse from the perspective of both Judaism and Christianity. There's no debating here. It's widely accepted. This is messianic, end times prophecy, biblical timing prophecy. Okay, and it clearly says that after 2 days, which is 2,000 years, which is 2 watches, in the third is when all of this occurs. And we know as Christians that the resurrection only occurs at the arrival of Jesus. So in the third day, he does raise us up, and we live before him, clearly identifies that Jesus comes in the third watch. So like Luke 12:38 said, he's either going to come in the second or the third watch. Well, we have our answer here. Looking back at the Tanakh, the Old Testament, we know that he's going to come at the third. But this is confirmed also in the New Testament, something that nobody else in Christianity has discovered. I put it into it's one of the chapters, my pillars of scriptural proof in my book there. And in one of the chapters of the book, it takes a very long time to explain this, so I'm going to micro condense it. It's the prayer of Gethsemane. Now, in this story, which everybody's seen through it, they haven't seen the important message in there. It appears that I'm the only person who has. So it's critically important that people listen to what I have to say here, because nobody else is saying it. Right? In this Gethsemane story, Jesus is walking with his disciples. They go through Gethsemane. Jesus says, wait and watch to his disciples. He gives them an instruction to watch. And there's countless instructions for us to watch for the arrival of Jesus in the New Testament. I'm not here to talk about them all today. I've read a couple verses so far. We are instructed to watch for his arrival. It is our blessed hope. Daniel 12, like I always say, instructs us to know and calculate when he's coming. It tells us the calculation for when he's coming. And it concludes with 2024, the same date that we get in all of the rest of the evidence. Okay, it says, blessed is he who is waiting earnestly and has come to the 1335th day year, which correlates to 2024. I go through that in the chapters of my book. But nonetheless, ignoring all that other evidence, the Gethsemane parable, Jesus instructs them to wait and watch for his return. He goes away to say a prayer. That prayer, by the way, I could just stop there and not expand, but that prayer is critically important. It's one of the other chapters in the book here, linked to a prophecy in Isaiah, linked to a prophecy in Revelation, where they come together. It's what I call the double cup of wrath prophecy. It's incredibly important. And that prophecy, which is about a period of 1,998 years, is separate but uniquely connected to the 2 watches prophecy of after 2,000 years. Now, why 1998? This was the length of time meticulously counted from after King David and King Solomon's rules ended, every single year, starting with the first king after Solomon, who was a bad king, all of the reigns of the kings, because almost all of them were bad, culminating with the final, who ended up, under that reign of the final king of Israel. Let me reterm that. Under one of these final kings, the Herodian kings, they tried to exterminate Jesus, and they ended up succeeding in this. So you have the ultimate culmination point, which is the death, the rejection and the death of the Messiah. The start of this point is when Israel started to disobey God at the hands of their kings who are supposed to lead them. That's exactly 999 years. Isaiah's prophecy says it would be a double portion of wrath and punishment that will come upon Israel, which would equal double of 999, which is 1998. You take this from the year of Jesus' baptism, which was 23 AD. I'll explain that momentarily. 1998 years later will bring you to the point, this year point, 2024, which should be the end. Okay? Now, in the 2000 year, the two watches prophecy, sorry. I got a little bit mixed up there. That's not taken from his baptism. That one's taken from his death, like I said. The culmination point is Jesus' death. That's the end of the 999. Then immediately starts 1998 years double punishment. Israel was punished and desolate for that period as well. Further evidence. And 2,000 years after his death, we get, what was I right the first time? Yes, 1,998 years after his death in 26 AD, which is verified by the prophecy of Daniel chapter 9. I'll get into that in a moment, like I said. You get 2024, okay? Now, if we're talking, that's the 1,998 years. If you're talking about the two watches, the 2,000 year period, this is taken from his baptism, not from his death point. From his baptism in 23 AD, he was teaching for about 3 years before he was put to death. So from 23 AD, with the year flux allowed for, year fluxes, we don't know the month or day that God is taking any measure of time from when he gives us all these biblical prophecies with time periods. An event could take place in a calendar year in any given year, but it could have taken place 12 months apart. If it took place in January or December, they could be apart by 12 months. So it's all fine and dandy to say it's from this year to that year, but you have to allow for up to 12 months of flux. Okay? So from his baptism in 23 AD, 2,000 years later, you get 2024 with the year flux applied. Okay? Going from the point of his death, the 1,998 years, you come to the same point. Okay? So with the year flux applied. So these things are unrelated prophecies. The two watches prophecy is basically what I'm talking about here tonight. Okay? And this is it's separate prophecies. It's the Gethsemane parable and Hosea. Separate prophecies, has nothing to do with the prophecy of Isaiah, has nothing to do with the prophecy from Revelation, has nothing to do with those things. Completely different. Okay? Similar time period. It's only different by about 2 years, plus a year flux, up to a year flux. But yet they still culminate at the same point. Two unrelated prophecies. You know what I mean? But anyway, so in the Gethsemane parable, the important thing is that Jesus instructed them to wait and watch. He left his disciples, said this prayer, which was the prayer where he was handing over the cup of wrath to God. God was then going to dispense it. Now, in the Gethsemane prayer, he was about to go on and die soon thereafter. Jesus, in fact, said in the Gethsemane story that he was, I can't remember the exact words, but he was fearful or woeful unto death. He knew he was about to die. Okay? And he said, take this cup from me, God, right? That's the cup of wrath. When Jesus died, God poured out that cup of wrath onto Israel. And it's also spoken about not just in Isaiah's prophecy on this, but it connects straight to Revelation. The exact key terms that Isaiah said is what Revelation says. That cup of wrath finishes pouring out. The final drops are poured out and shaken out on that final day. That's when it finishes pouring out, is on that final day, because it's a period of wrath. That's double. Okay? So anyways, Jesus says this great important prayer. It's not just any prayer. It's that important. Then he comes back to his disciples. He returns to the disciples, but they're asleep, meaning they're not watching. He told them to watch, but they didn't watch for his return. They fell asleep. Then Jesus said, okay, let's try it again. Wait and watch. I'm going to go away and do this 2.0. He did the same thing, same prayer, came back, and they had fell asleep again. So he rebuked them a second time. And he said, okay, we're going to try it 3.0. Jesus went away again, did the same thing a third time, it says, came back. It doesn't specify that they had fallen asleep a third time, which make them look pretty pitiful, no disrespect. But he does make an edict, and this is what the edict is, okay? So what that, in this Mark 14:41 verse I'm about to read, but that is the story. The story reveals, and nobody else realized this, it's a story in triplicate where Jesus is obviously doing this thing in triplicate for very important reasons. One is the prayer that he's talking about. It's the cup of wrath prayer, which is relevant, as I discussed. But also, he's teaching us to watch for his return. But most importantly, he's revealing in what watch he will arrive with the end days. It is the third watch, okay? So Mark 14:41 says, and he cometh the third time. What that means is this is Jesus coming back, 3.0, after saying the cup of wrath prayer. He's come back to the people, his disciples, who are supposed to be watching, whether they were or asleep. We don't know for sure in this third case. But he cometh the third time, and he saith to them, sleep on henceforth, and rest. It is over. The hour did come. Lo, the Son of Man is delivered up to the hands of the sinful. So what this reveals is that he's not coming on the first watch. He's not coming on a fourth watch. And he's not coming on the second watch. He's coming on the third watch. So all the stuff that I read up before this, a watch is 1,000 years. There are 4 watches where it says that he will come in either the second or the third watch. And where Hosea says that after 2 watches, he arrives in the third. Okay, then we get this verse here where Jesus reveals that he's coming on the third watch, and it is the great judgment time, and it's too late to change because boom. Okay, so right now we've seen critical evidence building up, and it's quite undeniable, revealing that, just like Hosea said, after 2 days, after 2,000 years, he will return. Now, is it 2,000 years from his baptism? That would make it 2023, 2024 with the year flux. Is it 2,000 years after his death? That would put it up towards 2026, with or without year flux. No, like I said, there are 2 different prophecies, 2 different chapters, covered in 2 different chapters in my book. 2 different, totally different prophecies, like I already mentioned. One is related to the cup of wrath prophecy that Isaiah made, which culminates in Revelations with the exact same terminology, and it is the period of 1,998 years that starts at the death of Jesus. Jesus died in 26 AD. That is completely separate from 2,000 years, 2 watches, the Gethsemane parable in Hosea. Completely different. The Gethsemane parable, the 2 watches, is after his baptism, when he was appointed as and approved as the Messiah and began to go out and teach and do the miracles. Okay? Now, how do we know that he was baptized in 23 AD and died in 26 AD? This is quite simple arithmetic. I think a 10-year-old child could do this. Probably an 8-year-old child could do this. Surely everybody will be able to grasp this. If you go to Daniel chapter 9, it tells you that there will be 483 years from when the decree is made to rebuild Jerusalem, both street and wall, that 483 years later, the Messiah will be cut off. Every Christian knows that this verse is the timing verse that pinpoints Jesus. But what Christians don't get right is the year that they start the measure from and culminating in the actual year that Jesus died. Why do so many Christians for so long make a mistake? Because they want to go by their personal theories and not by history and facts in the Bible. The Bible says, and most people are oblivious to this, the Bible says that King Artaxerxes was the one, it details this in Bible verses, that issued the decree to rebuild Jerusalem, both street and wall. Daniel did not say the decree to rebuild the temple. He said to rebuild Jerusalem, the city, with streets and walls being rebuilt. Because before him, Cyrus issued a decree. He issued many decrees and never got acted on, but one of his final ones was to rebuild the temple. They didn't even rebuild the temple. They started to rebuild the temple. And in between him and Artaxerxes, there were attempts to rebuild Jerusalem, but they never rebuilt it with the streets and walls, which is a complete Jerusalem. That's why all the prophecies are, and it was so important to them back then, for it to be the true city is to have streets and walls. That's what makes it complete and navigable and protected. So that's why Daniel said from the decree to rebuild Jerusalem, both street and wall, there are 483 years until the Messiah is cut off. So since the Bible tells us which king it was who made this decree, it was Artaxerxes, and the verses in the Bible say that they are rebuilding the streets and walls of Jerusalem according to Artaxerxes' decree. I mean, there are verses that say that. It's undeniable, okay? So Artaxerxes made that decree historically in 457 BC. Historians are the ones who make this point, not biblically dogmatic people, but historians who are often atheists say that historically this is a well-documented event, is one that they can pinpoint a year for based on all sorts of evidence, and it was 457. In fact, they even say, and these are the scholars, that no other year is applicable. It could only be 457. So in 457 BC, you do the simple math that an 8-year-old child can do. You count forward 483 years, and you get 26 AD for the death of Jesus. That's how you know, based on facts, history, and the Bible, the perfect unison of all of them, like how it should be, he died in 26 AD. But all the Christians will argue with me, oh no, he died in 29, or he died in 30, or 32, or 33. But they have no reason for that. They just want it to be, and they don't even know why. When you look at the facts, it's 26 AD. And we know that he taught his gospel for roughly 3 years before. So he was baptized in 23 AD, possibly even 24. I can't remember offhand if it says anywhere he taught for 3 years, but you get the point, right? He died in 26 AD. So when he died in 26 AD, the double cup of wrath punishment, 1,998 years, starts from then and culminates in 2024. Okay? When you're taking it from the baptism, which is only applicable when the 2 watches 2,000 years approach, it still ends with 2024, with the year flux applied. So 2 different unrelated prophecies, both culminating at the same point. Okay? And they don't get more significant and striking than these 2 discoveries. Okay, so back to Mark 14:41. And he, Jesus, cometh the 3rd time. So he returns to the people the 3rd time, the 3rd watch, because he told them to watch each time. It's literally a watch. He instructed them to watch. And what is a watch? By night, or a watch, it is to sit there and watch. That's what a watch is. It's for the shepherds to watch their flocks, or the porters to watch the doors, or the guards and the watchmen to watch the tower and watch the walls. That's what the watches are for. Nobody can say that I'm wrong in this. I'm 100% correct. So Jesus came back on the 3rd time, the 3rd watch, and said to them, boom, that's when he arrives. Okay? He didn't say that, but you know what I mean. Now, since it is blatantly revealed, like I said, that Jesus will come after 2,000 years, my question was, that I just asked, 2,000 years from his baptism or 2,000 years from his death? Was 2,000 years from his baptism, based on all the reasons that I just said. Now, also, he was alive when he made the Gethsemane parable. Okay? It may have been the year 25 or 26, but that's beside the point. And plus, at the end of the day, we have so much evidence from the other prophecies I'm not even getting into here that pinpoint 2024. It cannot be 2026. 2025 is still, it might be at the start of 2025. That's not going to defy anything. But when you start getting to 2026 or later, that defies all the other 7 prophecies. It's just illogical. That's not going to happen. Why is God going to give so much evidence? The 6,000 years ends in 2024. Daniel's prophecy pinpoints 2024 meticulously. That's the most important and explicit verse about the timing of the end in the whole Bible, and it details it's going to be 2024. So you can't just ignore that evidence, because you can say, oh, well, what if you're going to take 2,000 years from his death? No, the 2,000 years goes from his baptism. Okay? It's going to happen in 2024, maybe just after the end of 2024, right? Even if it's going to happen in 2026, oh dear, oh heavens to Betsy, is that such a big blinking deal? No. Is another year or 2 awaiting? Is that big of a deal? No. You still got to get ready, because it's the end of days, don't you? Right? Yeah. So who cares? People make such a big deal about this, right? But anyways, it's going to be 2024. And if it isn't, well, it's probably going to happen within a year or so after that. Okay? So that's when it's going to occur. It's going to occur 2024, at most 2025, maybe 2026. Okay? That's the most fluctuation you're going to get. But by all the maths and by all the prophecies, it's going to be 2024. Okay? Period. Not 2026. We'll have to wait and see. But anyways, these final verses are very important because, like I claimed earlier, we only have 2 verses in the whole Bible out of like 1,000 pages where it says you won't know when Jesus comes. But wait, nope. Like I said, it doesn't even say that. It says you won't know the day or the hour. It doesn't say you won't know the year or years. Just the day or the hour. But you got every Christian out there under the sun putting words in God's mouth saying, oh, but what that means is you won't know the year either. Don't you think if God wanted to tell us something that he would tell us it? If he wouldn't tell us half of it and then expect us to read his blinking mind? You think God's ignorant? All these Christians, fellow Christians, think he's ignorant. No, God told you something. He also told you don't add to his word or take away from it. I'm the one reading his word. His word says you won't know the day or the hour. And in between those 2 and only 2 verses in the Bible that say that, we have the paragraph of verses that say you got to watch for the year of his return, because if you don't, you'll be caught by surprise and forsaken. Okay? So the only people saying you won't know when Jesus returns are those who are slumbering, who will unfortunately probably be rejected. That's the reality. They've fallen victim to the lies. Okay? And lies only come from one place, especially when they're such dangerous and important lies. Right? But right here, this is the ultimate proof. No other Christian on the planet reads this verse out loud, teaching it to the people to raise awareness, like I'm saying. No, everybody's oblivious to it. In 1 Thessalonians 5, verses 2 through 6, it says, what this shows, in short little summary, the true Christians will know when Jesus comes and will not be caught by surprise. Okay, that's the micro summary. It reveals, it's a paragraph, the true Christians, the real ones who are doing the right thing, will know when Jesus comes and will not be caught by surprise. You think I'm a liar? Well, let's read the verse. It says here, for yourselves have known thoroughly that the day of the Lord, as a thief in the night, does so come. Now, every Christian knows this, because every Christian says that. Oh, he comes like a thief. You don't know when he comes because he comes like a thief. That's what the Bible says. And they call me a false prophet and this and that there because they don't know the Bible. Well, here's the Bible. Listen, right? It says, for yourselves have known thoroughly that the day of the Lord, as a thief in the night, does so come. For when they may say peace and surety, then sudden destruction does stand by them, as the travail does her who is with child, and they shall not escape. But listen now, it says, and ye brethren, fellow Christians, brethren, are not in darkness, that the day may catch you as a thief. This is what all these charlatans, the actual fake Christians who say, oh, I'm a Christian, and you can't know when Jesus is coming, right? The charlatans who don't even know that they're charlatans, the deceived ones who are 99% of Christians, deceived thoroughly by the adversary, saying you can't know and you cannot know when Jesus will return. They are liars, drunken on their lies. Okay, it says right here, and ye brethren are not in darkness, that the day may catch you as a thief. You go ask any church leader about the stuff I'm saying, they'll say, you can't know when Jesus comes. He comes like a thief. They don't even know. They could have read it, but Satan blocked their brain, so they couldn't comprehend it when they read this second half of the verse. And ye brethren are not in darkness, that the day may catch you as a thief. All ye are sons of light and sons of day. That's the day of the Lord. You are sons of day and not of night, nor of darkness. So then we may not sleep as also the others, but watch and be sober. So this goes right back to the Gethsemane story, like I said. Jesus told them to watch. He left, and to watch for his return. But what did they do? They fell asleep. They weren't watching for his return. And what happened? They got rebuked. They were judged and forsaken for it. That's the lesson that was imparted in that story directly. And what Paul says right here is that The people who are in darkness, i.e., all the wannabes, all the Christians who say, oh, you don't know when Jesus is coming back. You're all in darkness. And he says, but we, the true Christians, we're not in darkness, that the day of his arrival will catch us by surprise. All of us are sons of light. The true Christians are sons of light and sons of day. We are not of night, nor of this darkness that makes you slumber. He says, so then we may not sleep, as also the others. We will watch and be sober. Now, what's so important about this lesson? Because you got all the Christians out there, fellow Christians, saying that Jesus comes like a thief. You can't know when he comes. They're only reading half the Bible. They're not reading the whole of the Bible. The other parts, they're just looking at one part of something, reading what they want to read, ignoring the other half. That says, yeah, Jesus will come and surprise everybody like a thief, but he's only going to surprise those who are slumbering and not worthy. Those who are watching and ready will know when he's coming, and they will not be asleep. They will be watching. They will know when he's coming, and they will not be caught by surprise. And to help illustrate this, I always use the analogy. If you have a friend coming to visit you from overseas, and he's coming in on an airplane, which is representing Jesus arriving, right? If you know at least roughly when Jesus is coming, in the Bible case, we're talking about years. That's not really applicable to an airport waiting for your friend, right? But you get the point. If you know roughly when your friend is coming, your friend says, yeah, I'm coming this day or in this hour period, but you don't know exactly the exact day or hour, right? You just know in this period of days, 1 or 2 days, he's going to come at some point. You could go wait at the airport for him. When his flight comes in, you'll see him. You won't be caught by surprise because why? Oh, you're coming to the airport within a day or two? Okay, well, I'll go there and wait for you faithfully. That's the analogy. So those who are ready and watching are doing that. We know roughly when he's coming. In the biblical case, it's the year that he will be coming, not the day or the hour, though. Okay? We got all these other Christians who just wander around through the airport or outside the airport aimlessly for thousands of years, scratching their heads, saying, oh, well, we can't possibly know when he comes. We just know that he's coming at some point. How can you wait for your friend to arrive and greet him? How can you do that if you don't know when he's coming? There's another verse I didn't even put in this list here, but it's in these parallel chapters that I'm reading, where it says that, for example, he says, if he comes in the second or the third watch and finds it so, meaning those watching, if he comes and finds you watching, those servants will be happy. Okay? All that effect. But anyways, in Luke 12, 45, 47, this is right here. And if that servant may say in his heart, my Lord does delay to come, and may begin to beat the men servants, the maid servants, to eat and to drink. Now, some people say, because they're so afraid of being wrong, and they're so afraid of me actually being right here, because of the implications that it brings, they say that, oh, no, this is talking about people who are really bad and they beat people. They're abusive. No, it's not. Because it says, if that servant, that Christian, may say in his heart, my Lord does delay to come, and may begin to beat the men servants, maid servants, but also says to eat and to drink. Eating and drinking, we got to do that to survive. That's not abusing people. So what it's telling you is if you're going about your life in your mind thinking Jesus is just delaying to come, which means you don't know when he's coming. You just think he's taking forever. You have no clue when he's coming. You have two types of people. You got the one who knows when his friend's coming to the airport, and you got the other one who just walks around aimlessly staring at the walls because they have no clue. You have two types of people. One of them is watching for his return because they know at least the year he's returning. The other ones have no clue. So when it says, my Lord does delay to come, and these are the servants, Christians saying, my Lord delays to come, which of the two is it? It's obviously not the one who knows when Jesus is coming. It's obviously the one who has no clue when he's coming. The ones who say you can't know when he's coming. So what this verse is highlighting, just like was highlighted in 1 Thessalonians, is that those who are ignorant in the slumber and not watching, not knowing the year of his return, will be caught by surprise and will teach their own, potentially fail at judgment. Okay? And that's why it reiterates it in Luke 12, 45 through 47 here. In this passage is paralleled in Matthew 24 and 25. the exact place where it says you won't know the day or the hour. Like I kept saying throughout the video, there's a huge cluster of verses, a paragraph in between. This is this in parallel. This is from Luke, but the same thing is paralleled in Matthew. Isn't that ironic that the very source, even the very portion of the whole book, I mean, it's within like a page from each other. The two verses where people say that I'm wrong and you can't know when he comes, within that same page contains proof that they are backwards wrong. But for 2,000 years, you think the fellow Christians figured it out? No. Why? Because they don't care enough about God or their salvation. They want to take the easy train through life, listen to what other people have to say, and they don't do anything critically. They don't think critically, right? But Luke 12:45-47 says, and if that servant, that Christian, may say in his heart, my Lord does delay to come, may begin to beat the men servants, maid servants, to eat and to drink and to be drunken, just living your life, the Lord of that servant will come in a day in which he does not look for him, and in an hour that he does not know, and will cut him off. In his portion with the unfaithful, he will appoint. And that servant who, having known his Lord's will, which is to what? His will is for us to watch for his return and to be righteous, don't get me wrong, right? But that servant who, having known his Lord's will and not having prepared, which you do in the 6th day, this is the 6,000 years, that's just before he arrives, right? It's the time of preparation. And not having prepared, nor having gone according to his will, shall be beaten with many stripes. So, this verse right here openly told us that if you have no clue when Jesus returns, there's no number in your head. You just question marks. My Lord delays to come. I know he's coming. And you're out there, unless you're really righteous, I mean, you'll be saved by, if you're a good person, right? But if you're living your life and your life ain't all that good, you know what I mean? You're just living your life. You're oblivious to when Jesus is going to return. You have no clue. You're not prepared. You're not ready. And what's it say will happen to you? The Lord will come in a day in which he does not look for him, and in an hour that he does not know, and will cut him off. Now, those two key words there, day and hour. Remember, the only places in the whole Bible where it says you won't know the day or the hour when Jesus returns, you won't know the day or the hour that Jesus returns. That same chapter, Matthew 24, paralleled here in Luke 12, they say the same thing. If you don't know when Jesus is returning, that's when this applies to you. That's what it says. My Lord delays to come, then Jesus will return in a day in which that slumbering, unfaithful one does not look for him, and in an hour they does not know. So you see, what the fellow Christians have done wrongly is apply those two verses where you won't know the day or the hour as a blanket term that applies to every human being on the planet. And they claim that nobody for any reason could possibly know at all anything about when Jesus returns. That's the problem. But that's not what it says in the Bible. The Bible says that it's not a blanket that applies to every individual on the planet. That is a blanket that only applies to those who don't know when he returns. If you don't know when he's coming into the airport off his airplane, how can you be there to greet him? Jesus said in one of his verses that when he knocks at the door, you have to immediately open to him. If you have no clue he's coming, how are you going to immediately open? That's why it says when he comes on the second or third watch and finds it so, the people watching, blessed are those servants, right? So it is not a blanket term that applies to every person on the planet, that every person on the planet will not know the day or the hour. The Bible itself actually says that the people who won't know the day or hour are the unworthy, slumbering, ignorant ones, even Christians, who are what? Going to be cut off. So the people who are destined to be cut off will not be able to comprehend when he is returning. They will be oblivious. My Lord does delay to come, they will be saying. You got all those Christians, 99% of them saying, oh, you can't know when he returns. That's them. And Jesus said, many will be turned away in that day. They'll come to me saying, oh, we praised you, Lord. In your name, we did many miracles. And he will say, be gone from me, you workers of lawlessness. Right? Everybody. I know that I am 100% correct here. It is the glorious God-given truth. I am correct in this. All the people, all the churches, the Christians have been absolutely supremely ignorant. They've had 2,000 years to figure this out. Nobody else on the planet has. I appear to be the only person, as far as I could tell, who's even discovered this, but that's what the Bible says. I'm not making it up. It says that. So the people who won't know the day or hour, and the people who will be caught by surprise as if by a thief, are those who are not watching for the year of his return. Okay? And for their unfaithfulness, and for, remember, Jesus rebuked the disciples for not watching and for falling asleep. They weren't waiting and watching for his return. They fell asleep. They got rebuked. Right? They will be cut off. You're not watching for his return. You don't know when it's going to happen. Daniel 12 told us, blessed is he who knows, waits, counts it. He told us when it's going to happen. He told us, instructed us to count it, know it, expect it, wait for it. It's our blessed hope. We're told this a million different ways in the Bible. Not a million, but you know what I mean. It's only those who do not pay attention to this, who are oblivious, are the ones who can be caught by surprise. That's it. Okay? And Jesus caps it off with a third witness to this truth in Revelation 3:3, where he says to John, remember then how thou was received and heard. This was an edict to one of the assemblies, but still, he said it to John. Remember then how thou was received and heard, and be keeping and reform. If then thou mayest not watch for what? His return. I will come upon thee as a thief, and thou mayest not know what hour I will come upon thee. So we got Jesus backing up what I just claimed from Luke 12. That's a third witness. You got 1 Thessalonians 5, Luke 12, which is also parallel to Matthew 24, Revelation 3. That's your four sources right there confirming, uber confirming 100% that you are supposed to know when Jesus returns and watch for it. We've been instructed to do that. And the people who do not do that are the ones who won't know the day or hour. They are the ones who will be caught by surprise. They're the ones asleep. They're the ones not watching. They're the ones who are going to be rebuked, and they're the ones who are going to be cut off. So when you got 99% of all the fellow Christians out there saying, you can't know when Jesus comes, are they truth speakers or liars? They are liars, like it says in the title. They're all liars, spouting lies. You don't have a good fountain dripping out poison water, do you? You don't call a poisonous water fountain a good fountain. You got a good fountain that got good, clean, nutritious water, and you got a bad fountain spitting out poison water. Are you going to swap their names around? No. Lies are poison. Truth is like good water. You will not get poison dripping out of truth. Okay? When you got a fountain spitting out lies, it is a poison fountain. And that only comes from Satan. So Satan has duped all the fellow Christians into not being ready. And if you're that ignorant and asleep, then you better hope and pray that you're that righteous of a person that God's like, well, I'll let you off the hook because you're so good. When he's blatantly told us that if you're not watching for his return, that you'll be cut off. He blatantly said that. Okay, so again, just to reiterate what Jesus said, remember then how thou hast received and heard, and be keeping and reform. If then thou mayest not watch. So if you do not watch for my return, I will come upon thee as a thief, and thou mayest not know what hour I will come upon thee. What that also says in turn is that if you do watch, you will not be caught by surprise as if by a thief. If you don't watch, he will come upon you as a thief. If you do watch, you won't be caught by surprise. Why? Because you know he's coming. Imagine if the thief called you up, hey, I'm coming over your house at 3 o'clock. You'll be sitting there at 3 o'clock waiting, right? That's what's happening here. So when Jesus shows up, the thief shows up at 3 o'clock, like he told you, are you going to be surprised? No, of course you're not. But you got all the people in the house who didn't hear the message, didn't get the message, didn't listen. They got the phone call, they didn't listen to it. Oh, you're going to come by at 3 o'clock? Meh. That's everybody else. Meh. He told us he's coming like a thief. He told us when he's coming. What's their response? Meh, we don't know. So when he does come, breaks down the door, comes in like a thief. Oh my gosh, I didn't know he was coming now. You see, the point is so blinking clear. I know I'm 100% correct. Everybody else is wrong. It's a fact. I'm not being arrogant. It's just a fact. It's so obvious that the whole world has been duped by Satan. The world of Christianity has been duped, absolutely duped, right? When we're instructed to know when he comes, we're instructed to watch for that year, and you have all the world churches, even the big ones, all saying you can't know when he comes. That shows you how much of a global grip that Satan has had on this earth for 2,000 years, squeezing the life juice out of all the fellow Christians to the point where they're numb and dumb, and they're just sitting there like, la, 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 la. I don't know when he's coming, right? Very, very scary. That's what gives me the passion to come out here and reveal these teachings. That's what made me write my book, because I'm looking around seeing everybody else, they got all the doctrine wrong. If you want to get the right theology, get my other book on Amazon, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. Not only have they got the theology absolutely satanically backwards, but they're not even aware that the end is imminent. I mean, even when you get all the world events proving that it's about to happen, they're still just oblivious. They have absolutely no clue. It'll be the day that Jesus arrives in the sky, and they'll all be caught by surprise. Oh my gosh, I didn't know this was going to happen now. That's what's going to happen. You really think that the world's going to clue into what I'm trying to say before it occurs? No, they're not. Only a few people are going to hear it. Only a few people are going to believe it. Everybody else, they'll think that I'm being arrogant, but in reality, at the core, they're the ones being arrogant. All I'm doing is relaying the Bible and the truth because I care about people, but they'll view me as being arrogant and talking loud. They won't listen, and, well, they're just going to be asleep and get cut off. So don't say I didn't warn you. Don't say God didn't warn you, because he warned us plenty. So anyways, how could anybody deny that Jesus is going to return after 2,000 years? We've seen the verse line up in my video here today. He's going to return after 2,000 years. Okay? 2,000 years from his baptism. It's 2024. It's going to happen soon. And if it's not in 2024, maybe at the start of 2025. And worst case scenario, maybe 2026. But like I said, who really cares if it's 1 or 2 years different? It'll be, what are we going to do? Clash symbols around and say, oh, you were wrong. It's a year or two off. It's still soon. But based on the mathematics and the evidence, like I said, and the logic and the separate prophecies, the 2,000 years comes from his baptism, so it should be 2024, not 2026. But in either case, like I said, it's only 2 years different, right? It's going to happen soon. In either case, that's my point. It's going to happen soon. In either case. And we were warned it's going to be like the days of Noah. It's going to be like the day Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed. And it's going to be peace and surety until sudden destruction. We're warned in those 3 ways. That's how it's going to be. And we're also warned to watch our blessed hope for the return of Jesus. It's an appointed time of the end. Okay? An appointed time. So don't say I didn't tell you. And don't believe all those charlatans, all those liars out there who are saying you can't know when Jesus returns. They don't know the first thing of what they're talking about. They are the arrogant ones, arrogantly in an uneducated stance, burping out all this nonsense as you can't know when he's returning, calling everybody else false prophets and charlatans and pointing the finger at everybody else. But they're the uneducated ones who haven't bothered to read God's word, who haven't bothered to apply it in understanding, and are absolutely oblivious. I bet you they don't even know these verses exist. These last ones that I read. I bet you they don't even know. And actually, I bet you they don't even know almost my whole presentation today. They've had 2,000 years to do it. I did it in under 20 years. When I started reading the Bible at 18, I did it in under 20 years. Then they've had 2,000 years, 100 times the length of time, and they couldn't figure it out. What excuse do they have? What excuse did I have? Well, I cared about my salvation and everybody else, and I care about God. So I devoted my life and my time to studying it. I figured it out in 20 years. It's not rocket science. You just need your eyeballs and your brain. God gave that to you. But everybody else had 2,000 years. They didn't figure it out. What can you say, right? Did they really care about God as much? No, of course they didn't. They had 2,000 years to figure it out, and they didn't. They could have been teaching this for 2,000 years. But they haven't, because they're asleep and ignorant. So don't say I didn't warn you. Anyways, take care, folks, and God bless.